What's up? I'm Steve from GenX Horror, and this is where we mainly talk about the 70s and 80s horror and sci-fi that shaped our generation. And today we're going to tear up a few movies that absolutely made Friday nights at the video store feel like you scored tickets to the hottest event in town. And that's your rec room at midnight. These are the beautifully bizarre horror flicks from the 80s that we bike back home with in a little plastic bag that, if we were lucky, had a box of overpriced Raisinets we couldn't resist at the counter. These are the movies that separated the casual horror fans from the true believers, the ones that made you feel like you've discovered something genuinely special when you stumbled across them buried between the mainstream releases. Whether you found them during those magical late-night cable TV binges when your parents thought you were asleep, or they were the movies that made you keep that VHS a few days extra because you had to show them to your friends, these films represent that golden era when horror was weird, wild, and wonderfully unexplainable. Let's get into it.
Leave while you can. No.
Alright, let's start off with 1985's House with an IMDb of 6.1. Now, this one was always prominently displayed at Family Video, and for good reason. Just look at that cover art. William Katt stars as a horror novelist who inherits his aunt's house and discovers it's basically an interdimensional portal to Monster Town, complete with creatures that look like they escaped from a haunted house attraction. And this plot involves him battling demons while trying to rescue his son from an alternate dimension. And yeah, that actually happened all the time in the 80s. Turning what could have been a simple haunted house story into something resembling a live-action Saturday morning cartoon gone horribly wrong. And Sean Cunningham, fresh off the Friday the 13th success, wanted to create something that mixed genuine scares with practical effects that would make kids both terrified and amazed. Sean recalls visiting Hong Kong around the time of the film's release there, but he was confused by the poster he saw in Hong Kong. It featured an abundance of characters for the title, not just house. He asked why it took so many to simply say house, but he discovered the title had been changed in Hong Kong to Don't Go Into the Haunted House After Midnight. And yeah, that's a lot of characters.
One after another they check in and pray for the day they can check out.
This one comes up in the comments a bunch, and it's 1980's Motel Hell. Oh, I love this one. This is a 6 on IMDb, and this one you'd find sandwiched between actual horror slasher films, when it's really marketed as more of a pitch black comedy about the American dream gone horribly, horribly sideways. Rory Calhoun plays Farmer Vincent, who runs a roadside motel and makes the best smoked meats in the county by harvesting his guests and planting them in his secret garden like the world's most disturbing vegetables. The film takes the whole what's really in your food paranoia that was huge in the late 70s and cranks it up to absolutely ridiculous levels, complete with Vincent wearing a pig's head and wielding a chainsaw in a cinematic battle. Director Kevin Connor shot this in just 5 weeks and originally wanted to make a straight horror film, but the cast kept finding the absurdity in the script and leaned into the comedy, creating something that predates films like Tucker and Dale vs. Evil by just decades. This is basically Texas Chainsaw Massacre if Tobe Hooper had decided to make a satire instead of the nightmare masterpiece he created. Oh, I love this one.
All kinds of critters to make Farmer Vincent fritters.
Imagine, if you will, an exhibit in fear.
It looks a little spooky, boys. You think we should do this?
Before we get into the next one, let me apologize if you heard my team's chime beep in the background. I'm in my work truck. It's lunchtime. And obviously, that's going to be traumatizing to a lot of people. My phone is now silenced. Let's talk about 1988's Waxwork. IMDb of 6.1. This is a horror anthology disguised as a single story about a mysterious wax museum where the exhibits are actually portals to different horror scenarios. A group of college students gets trapped in displays featuring everything from vampires to werewolves to zombie butlers, with each scenario lovingly recreating classic horror tropes with the kind of attention to detail that makes you wonder if director Anthony Hickox was secretly trying to make 10 different movies at once, even though he infamously wrote this in just 3 days. This was made for just $2 million. It managed to secure an incredible cast, including David Warner, Patrick McNee, proving that sometimes the best way to make a horror film is to just embrace every single insane idea you've ever had and just make them all work together. And they worked in this one for sure.
Push 666 for your horoscope now.
In 1988, they made a little movie called 976 Evil, and IMDb gave it a 5.1 out of 10. Robert Englund's directorial debut. This one caught your eye at the video store because, it's Freddy Krueger. He made a movie. But what you got was something way stranger than expected. And the plot revolves around a demonic phone line. Remember those 976 numbers we would call in the 80s for jokes or sex tips or whatever the hell it was? This one gives callers supernatural powers in exchange for their souls, turning nerdy teenager Hoax into a leather-clad demon who looks like he was straight out of a heavy metal video. It's basically what if calling a 1-900 number could literally damn your soul. And since most of us did call a 1-900 number back in the day, who's to say it didn't? Robert Englund wanted to create something that felt like EC Comics had come to life, and it had with twisted tales and over-the-top supernatural revenge, though the studio interference left the final product feeling more disjointed than he probably intended. A little trivia for this one, Stephen Jeffries, who played Evil Ed in Fright Night, can be seen standing beside a Fright Night poster in the El Diablo projector room where all this takes place. Not just in the projector room, but in the El Diablo theater. Having a hard time getting words out today, but we're going to roll right into 1981, The House by the Cemetery, 6.1 on the IMDb. And this one was tucked away quietly in the Italian horror section, which meant you knew you were in for something completely awesome. And Lucio Fulci absolutely delivered with this tale of a family moving into a house with a very inconvenient zombie living in the basement, as most zombies are known to be. One of the early VHS issues of this film in America had several of the film's reels out of order, which made this erratic kind of flow even more difficult for early VHS audiences in the States. Either way, the plot involves a professor researching a previous occupant's murders while dealing with Dr. Freudstein, a centuries-old doctor who's been performing gruesome experiments to keep himself alive. And man, does it show. Fulci was at the peak of his gore-soaked powers here, delivering some of the most memorably nasty death scenes in horror history, while somehow maintaining a dreamlike atmosphere that makes the whole thing feel like a particularly waking nightmare you just can't shake. The film was part of Fulci's unofficial Gates of Hell trilogy, though it stands perfectly well on its own as a masterpiece of Italian splatter that influenced everyone from Dario Argento to modern horror filmmakers. It's just a classic.
What's in the basket?
What's in the basket?
What's in the basket?
My brother.
We're in 1982 now, and we're going to talk about Basket Case. This comes up in the comments a lot as well, and it got a 6.2. And this is a VHS that looked absolutely insane on the shelf and somehow managed to be even crazier than its cover promise. The story of Dwayne Bradley and his surgically separated Siamese twin, Bilal, who lives in a wicker basket and has some serious anger management issues about the whole separation thing. Or honestly, maybe he's just upset about the basket. They don't really say. Writer-director Frank Henenlotter crafted this tale of brotherly revenge on a budget of about $35,000, using New York's grittiest locations to create a horror film that feels like it was beamed in from another planet, where exploitation movies and art house cinema had a beautiful, twisted, insane baby. The crew would go dumpster diving for set furniture and plumbing props to use throughout this movie. It's shot in the same 42nd Street location that would later house Taxi Driver and other classics. Basket Case captures a New York that no longer exists while telling a story that is so uniquely weird that it spawned 2 sequels and inspired decades of midnight movie screenings.
What are you gonna do if someone dies tomorrow, or the next day, or the next day?
Well, I'm not gonna think about it.
This one's a bit of a favorite too. This is 1982's Q, The Winged Serpent. It got a 6.0 on IMDb, and it's Larry Cohen's bizarre monster movie that caught everyone off guard by somehow being both a classic creature feature and a character study about small-time crook Jimmy Quinn, played by Michael Moriarty in full scenery-chewing mode, who turned 81 in April and is still alive, even though in another video I said he was dead, confusing him with someone else that I can't even remember the name now, but that's my bad. Don't RIP Michael Moriarty, he's still out there. He discovers that a giant Aztec serpent got his nesting atop the Chrysler building. The plot weaves together ancient mythology, New York crime drama, and kaiju movie thrills as Quinn tries to cash in on his discovery while the monster decimates Manhattan from above, creating something that feels like King Kong meets Serpent in the Rainbow with a dash of, like, Mean Streets thrown in for good measure. Cohen famously shot the film guerrilla style around New York without permits, using the city's natural chaos to create an authentic backdrop for the supernatural mayhem. Plus those aerial shots of the monster flying around those Manhattan skyline, it looks incredible today. The window cleaner who famously loses his head was the actual window cleaner at the time of the filming. His name was William Pilch, and I mean, he could still be alive, but he'd be headless, I guess.
A woman and her sons live in isolation. When they come out, it's for one reason only.
Now let's see what you brought.
Mother's Day came out in 1980, and this one's only got a 5.3 on IMDb, which is odd. It's a story of two psychotic brothers and their demented mother who terrorize a group of college friends during what was supposed to be a peaceful camping reunion, like they all should be. Director Charles Kaufman, which is brother of Troma's Lloyd Kaufman, created something that plays like a twisted inversion of every wholesome family TV show from that era, with the maternal figure being the most depraved character in a cast full of genuine monsters who make the camping trip from hell look like a pleasant nature walk. The film was controversial even by 80s standards for its unflinching approach to violence, but it's also a surprisingly effective take on American family values and the whole, mothers know best trope that was everywhere in popular culture. Goonies comes to mind because she wasn't fun either. Made for practically nothing in New Jersey locations that look appropriately isolated and threatening. Before filming began, actually, a corpse was found in the house that was used, and if that location scout doesn't deserve a cut, I don't know what Kaufman was thinking.
Want to see the Boogens?
This Friday night?
Right. Can you go?
No, I can't.
But Steph, the Boogens.
This is like a walk through the comments section. This is 1981's The Boogens, which we always are talking about. Got a 5.5 on IMDb, and here's one that was always lurking in the creature feature section, promising underground monster mayhem, and delivering exactly that, with the story of ancient turtle-like creatures that emerge from abandoned mine shafts to terrorize a small Colorado town. Man, those small towns never see it coming. The plot follows a group of young people who reopen a sealed mine and accidentally unleash these prehistoric little beasties that have been waiting decades for their next meal, creating a classic humans versus monsters scenario that feels like a loving throwback to like 1950s B movies, but with 80s gore effects. James Conway wanted to create something that captured the spirit of classic Universal monster movies while taking advantage of improved makeup and creature effects of the day, resulting in monsters that are genuinely creepy even if they're obviously guys in rubber suits or dachshunds in rat costumes. Only one creature was actually created for the movie, and the final scene was filmed in an actual mine.
Remember that little kid you used to pick on? Well, he's a big boy now.
1981's Evilspeak got a 5.6 out of 10 on IMDb, and this one was shoved in the supernatural section, and it's absolutely the weirdest, nerd revenge movie ever made. The story of Coopersmith, a military academy outcast who discovers a satanic computer program that lets him summon demons to get revenge on his bullies, and you've got to respect that because it had to have all been DOS prompted in 1981. The film taps into early 80s computer anxiety by literally making technology demonic, as Coopersmith uses an Apple II computer to translate Latin incantations and open portals to hell, creating what might be the only horror movie where basic programming language becomes a tool of supernatural vengeance. Director Eric Weston wanted to create a modern version of Carrie, but with more explicit religious imagery and early computer technology, resulting in a film that feels like it was made by someone who genuinely didn't understand how computers work, but, I thought they were probably evil anyway. The film earned over $400,000 the first week of its release, which was quite a large sum for its time, especially since it was only shown in Los Angeles and New York. We just did like a lightning round, tearing through 10 absolutely essential slices of late-night video store gold that prove the best horror films often come from the most wonderfully unhinged places. Which of these classics have you tracked down? And more importantly, which ones sent you scrambling to rewind and show your friends the craziest parts, and why is it basket case? Drop your favorite midnight movie in the memories in the comments below, and don't forget to, subscribe here for more, and like, and all that other jazz. And you know what, guys? This is a lot of fun. So let me just say this. Love you all. And as always, stay cool.